if you're not invested, you're going to get your ass kicked.
Fear must have been a part of it as well.
Fear's still a part of it.
Of course.
It's scary. I literally remember getting back. I had blood on me, his blood. Sat in the hotel room that we'd been in all week. An hour after my fight, I still had my shorts on, no t-shirt and my wraps on, eating a pizza. Felt like very inferior at times to people who were like, had money. I thought that people were thinking, this guy needs to like sort himself out and get a job. Needs to look after his family. It was like do or die for me. I either make it work or I have to go and do something I don't want to do for the rest of my life.
Hello and welcome to Unfiltered. My name is Ollie Dugmore. My guest today is a fighter. Born in Atherton, he started learning traditional martial arts aged 7. Now, standing at 6'5", weighing 18 stone, he sits 5th in the UFC's heavyweight rankings. But the path to a successful MMA career for a British heavyweight is not an easy one. Speaking about that journey, he said, "There were some days I had 20 quid and had to decide, am I going to feed the kids or am I going to put fuel in the car to go and train?" He was undefeated in the UFC, all kinds of cash bonuses for first round finishes, until a freak injury in his last fight blew his knee apart. A year later, he returns to the Octagon. My guest today is Tom Aspinall. Tom, welcome. How's tricks, mate?
That was quite the introduction. Yeah.
Was it all right?
Yeah, a bit over-exaggerated.
You reckon?
No, it was, it was good. It was good. Yeah.
How you doing, mate?
Good. I'm doing well, thanks, yeah.
You're looking well as well. Been banging the weights after the knee?
A little bit, yeah. Try to keep in shape, do you know what I mean? I didn't want to... A lot of people, they go depressed and fat when they're injured, and I tried to avoid both depression and fatness. I think I did all right.
That's a good rule for life, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I did all right with it.
Try and take care of yourself.
I am fit. My fight's in 8 weeks, so
Yeah.
I've got to be fit. So I'm feeling good. But I did keep in shape the whole time, really. I had a couple of months of being depressed and fat, and then got over myself a little bit and tried to like get back on the horse of being the UFC heavyweight champion of the world, and I'm well on my way to being there, I reckon.
I guess, what I was saying in that intro, when you started, it was success, and then to have to deal with something like that, to deal with a loss, but sort of a loss that it's not, it's almost not a heavy defeat or a decision, an injury like that, it's really rough, and how you respond to that can really dictate what happens next, right?
Yeah, I think this is a pivotal... No, that's not the right word. That's not a word, is it? How do you say it? Pivotal point in my career, I think. I think that like pre-surgery Tom Aspinall and post-surgery Tom Aspinall are like two pretty different people.
How?
A lot of ways, really. I think I had a lot of time to think during this time of not being able to do much physically. Because, I'm a pretty active guy. Like, especially when I was fighting, I was going like you said, I was going like literally from fight to fight to fight to win to win to win to bonus to interviews to media to all that stuff. And then it just went, boom, nothing. So I had a lot of time to think. And I feel like I cut a lot of stuff out of my life that I didn't need, that didn't serve me becoming UFC heavyweight champion of the world. And I'm really happy with it. I'm really content with the way that my life is now day to day. I'm really content with the people I've got around me. And the way that just my day-to-day life is, I'm really, really happy with it. And I think that a happy fighter, as corny as it sounds, like a happy fighter is a dangerous fighter, especially in my case. And I'm ready to beat everybody up.
I'm happy for you, mate. I'm happy for you.
Thank
So,
you.
with Unfiltered, as with all of our guests, it's a conversation about your life and how it's kind of led you to where you are, the person you are today. So,
Unfiltered. Does that mean you can drop F-bombs and that?
you can, mate.
C-bombs?
You can.
I don't often drop the C-bomb. Try and avoid that.
I'll
one.
drop a cunt in there now.
Okay.
We'll start it off
you
like
said
that.
it. You
Start
said
it
it.
strong, not you, yeah. Let's start at the beginning then. Let's begin at the beginning. Atherton.
Yes.
What was growing up there like? What was your childhood like?
Quite regular, really. Nothing out of the ordinary. From a good family. My family are very good people. Working class. It's a working class area. People, blue collar area. People work in garages, as plumbers, in factories, that kind of shit. Not lawyers, doctors, not that kind of place. Not that kind of corporate place. It's more you work in a garage, you work in a factory, you work as a plumber, electrician, you sell drugs, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Normal, blue-collar, smallish town person stuff.
Where does Atherton sit on the Wigan Kebab, Pasty Balm axis?
Pasty Balm.
Every time?
Yes. See, it's a bit of an odd area, so it's like... It's kind of like in a Wigan council area, but it would like people from Wigan wouldn't say Atherton was in Wigan. It's more of like a Manchester bit. It's
Salford.
yes. No, it's not Salford as such. I was actually born in
grey
Salford.
area.
It's a bit of a grey area. It's a bit of an in-between area. Greater Manchester. Greater Manchester is.
You began learning martial arts, traditional martial arts, at the age of 7. Were you a fighter? Were you born a fighter, or is it something that you just sort of ended up doing?
No, I was. I don't know if anyone. I don't know. I think it's definitely in me to be a fighter. I don't know. I think I'd be lost without it. But that's something that I discovered along the way. I just kind of like. It's something that it takes over your life, which is good in my case. All my energy went towards doing that, I don't like losing very much. I don't like, and I also like facing emotion. Do you know what I mean? I realised that fighting in front of people gave me a lot of nerves and anxiety, and I wanted to face that, and it related to other challenges and helped me deal with that as well. Like I used to be really, really shy. I used to not like being around people and being in groups and stuff like that. And I feel like that my success in that gave me confidence in everyday life as well. So I feel like that's why I was drawn to it a lot.
Fear must have been a part of it as well.
Fear's still a part of it.
Of course.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary, mate.
How do you deal with that? Do you try and channel it towards focus and,
Fear, it can make you, it can do quite a few things, to be honest. It makes me extra sharp because I know how to deal with it, and that's something that I've been dealing with now for a long time. So I'm a bit of a veteran at dealing with the fear. I feel like what I always say is like I've got a good relationship with it, fear, and some people don't have a good relationship with it, and it can really chew you up if you let it. But that's why you see a lot of good like gym fighters and stuff. Mate, I've been beat up plenty of times in the gym before, but I perform really well under the pressure, and not everybody does. Like I've got one of the UFC staff just asked me actually. There's a guy, Mick Parkin, who's just got in the UFC. He's a heavyweight who trains with me, and I think he's like 7 or 8-0. He's really good, like in the gym. And the UFC lady was just asking me like, "What's Mick like?" I said, "Mick's really good," but it's hard to see how good he really is because he's not fought in the UFC yet, and that's a whole another pressure that is only understood by someone who has fought a lot of times in the UFC. Like it's a different pressure. And then you fight low down the card, and then when you start fighting up the card and then you start main eventing, it's just a different pressure all the time. It just never ends really.
We're jumping ahead a little bit here, but I don't mind because your UFC debut, right? It's Fight Island, and you've spent your career as a mixed martial artist. You're here. It's your coming out party.
Yep.
You all sorts of emotions. And instead of it being, I don't know, and you've experienced this now, a sold out O2 for UFC London or, anything like that. And there's a couple of hundred fans. You're in sort of a COVID bubble. I don't want to I'd rather sort of forget a bit about COVID, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too.
If we
it was a lot of shite, weren't it?
Yeah,
it was terrible.
Fucking terrible, man. But, this is the pinnacle of your career. And other fights you've watched, sold out arenas, and it's not quite the same. I mean, what were the emotions for you going into that? It must have been weird.
It was. But do you know what? Looking back, I think it was the best way for me. It was like the best thing to come out of COVID for me because I really got used to the process of being a UFC fighter without having the pressure of like 20,000 people. The fourth fight I had was in Vegas. It was still in COVID. It was in the Apex, but
Was that Arlovsky?
that was when I fought Arlovsky. Yeah, but that was when I fought Spivak. I fought Arlovsky in the Apex, but there was no one there still.
Yeah.
But then when I fought Spivak, they'd let like 500 people in. And that felt like a massive crowd at the time because I had 3 fights with nobody.
Yeah.
And then I was already pretty comfortable like with the UFC stuff, with the travel, with like fighting overseas, the whole process of fight week, the pressure, and like I felt like I got pretty comfortable with that without anybody there for 3 fights. And then when it opened up again and like they started letting the big crowds in, I feel like I was already pretty used to like being a UFC fighter and what it is to be a UFC fighter. So I think I was really lucky in that respect. It didn't go from fighting on a show with 300 people to fighting in front of 20,000. It wasn't like that for me. It was like a slow build. So I think it actually worked in my favour a little bit.
With the Arlovsky fight as well, I know he's one of your heroes really growing up watching the UFC, right?
Yeah.
2-time heavyweight champion. You beat him. And then afterwards, you're still in the COVID bubble, right? You're in your hotel room with your dad eating pizza.
That's right. That's right.
Surreal.
That was very odd. That was an odd experience because that probably even still now I think that was the biggest win of my career, maybe. Even though like just because of who he is, you know what I mean? Like there's more implications for the other guys I beat. Like especially like Volkov, I think he was ranked top 5 at the time, and I finished him in the first round. But because Arlovsky is who he is, and when I fought him, he was on like a 6-fight win streak as well. He's not done as well since, but I think just because of who he is, it was like a massive deal for me. And then for me to be, I literally remember getting back. I had blood on me, his blood.
Of course.
Yeah, his blood. And I was just sat in the hotel room that we'd been in all week. Like an hour after my fight, I still had my shorts on, no t-shirt and my wraps on, eating a pizza. And I was like, what the hell is this? Waiting to like go home. It was so weird. But Arlovsky isn't what I thought he was. He's not a very nice person, or he wasn't very nice to me anyway. Yeah, he wasn't very nice.
People say that. They always say that. Don't meet your heroes, right?
Yeah, I didn't really.
Can't live up to the expectations.
Well, he wasn't very nice before the fight, and I was like, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
That's the way it goes sometimes. And then he was very grumpy after the fight as well. I thought it was going to have like a bit of a passing of the torch moment. I thought it was going to be like, oh, you know, but he wasn't up for it.
That's a shame.
Didn't fancy it.
Yeah. Let's backtrack a little bit. Your dad, one of the first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts in the UK. How central was he to your coaching, you getting into martial arts, you developing as a fighter?
Well, he's everything.
Yeah.
For me, like if he rung me up right now and went, Tom, I think you should stop fighting now. I think you've done enough. I'd be like, yep, no worries, and I'd go and tell the guys that I'm retiring. That's like what my dad means to me in terms of fighting. Like he's literally took me to my first ever martial arts session, and he's quite literally been at every session since. Literally, near enough. Like obviously he's missed a few sessions here and there, but near enough. Literally every session he's been there, and. Yeah, my 100% trust is in him. Like if it wasn't for him, I would never have even considered stepping foot in a gym or training, or I wouldn't even believe in myself, you know, because he believed in me like way before I even believed in myself. So everything that I've done or will do will be because of him.
I mentioned in that intro about sort of 20 quid. Does it go in the car? Does it go to feed the kids? That must have taken you to some pretty dark places, and I imagine he was pretty instrumental in sort of advising you through that and. Well, I imagine helping you out as well. Yeah,
well, if it wasn't for my dad, not even just my dad, but like my mum, my brother and stuff, like they pretty much kept believing in me when I didn't even really want to do it. They were like, listen, you can't, doesn't matter if you've got no money, you can't just stop now just because you've got no money. Like, you got to keep it going. You put all this work in, made all this sacrifice, you can't just stop because there was a few tough times, especially because I got 3 children. And especially like when my twins came along. Like twins is a big, like having 3 kids by the time you're 25 with no money, it puts like obviously a lot of pressure on. My wife, she's very believing in me as well, which is great because if she started complaining about it, I would have to go and get a proper job. Do you know what I mean? So there was a lot of people around us and stuff, like family members and friends who were like thinking I was like very irresponsible and telling me that I need to start looking at providing for my family and stuff and get a proper job and stuff like that. But like I say, luckily I had like my mum and dad in my ear being like, no, don't do it. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep making enough money so that you can go and train properly, and it'll take care of itself, and it did.
There's 2 things I want to say about that. One is that sounds like a very different Tom Aspinall to the one that's sat here now, because you've already said the phrase UFC heavyweight champion of the world twice in this conversation. It sounds like worlds apart. And the second is, I don't know, I'm thinking about if I was in that situation, how I'd think about myself as a man, my role in the family as a provider.
Yeah.
And not being able to do that must have done all sorts for you.
It's tough. It's tough because, like, you don't want to be that guy who everyone's looking at thinking, "What an irresponsible dad." Like,
yeah, man.
That's what I felt like. Like, that's what I felt like.
You
a lot
felt
of people.
like that?
Yeah, of course I did. Yeah, of course. And there's I got all kinds of different friends and family. Some of my friends have no money. Some of my friends are rich people. And I felt like very inferior at times to people who were like had money, who were friends, because I felt, even though they probably weren't. It's probably my own insecurities, like playing little mind games on me. But I felt like a lot of the times people were looking at me thinking, even if they might not have said it, or they might not even think it, but I think it was my own insecurities. I think people were just, I thought that people were thinking, this guy needs to like sort himself out and get a job and needs to look after his family. Like, because I felt like that, I felt like I should do that myself a lot, but I went on I actually, like, I think that was, again, another pivot. How the fucking hell do you say that word? Pivotal. Another pivotal point in my career. It was like do or die for me. It was like, I either do this and win and do good. I either make it work, or I have to, like, go and do something I don't want to do for the rest of my life. And I really don't want to do that. Yeah. Like, maybe if it wasn't for them situations where I had 3 children and a wife and a house and all this stuff to pay for, and I couldn't afford it. Maybe if I weren't in that situation and I just lived at home with my mum and dad, maybe I wouldn't have made it. In fact, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have made it, to be honest. So I think that was great for me.
Yeah, I guess maybe gives you a hunger and helps with, like, well, we were talking about fear earlier, right? It kind of, you can channel that, you can turn that negative emotion into a positive.
A lot of positive came out of it, definitely. I mean, I'm living my absolute dream right now. Like, I wake up every day, I'm free, I can do whatever the hell I want. I'm not locked down to anything, I don't have a boss, I can do what I want when I want, and yeah, it paid off.
Killer. Those first sessions with your dad, you know, thinking about you're younger, probably aren't kids' classes, right, in gyms? Then.
Not at all.
So you're getting on the mat with men.
Well, it was a very odd start. It was an odd start, to be honest.
Go on.
So I started like, I was like a big kid, obviously. I'm a big guy now, so it was always like, I always wanted to compete. Like, I like competing, and I would go to, like, boxing, for example. I'd do all different kinds of martial arts, but I'd go to boxing when I could get boxing fights, or I'd go to wrestling when I could get, like, wrestling competitions. And if the competition wasn't there and I couldn't get that, I would go to a different combat sport. That's how it'd work. And there was no, like, kids MMA class like there is now. It just didn't exist. Like, simple as that. Like, I was going all over the place trying to find kids to train with, and, like, my dad would take me everywhere, and just difficult it wasn't popular then, simple as that. So when I got to, like, 11 or 12, I would go down to the gym with my dad, train with the adults a little bit, but ultimately I was 11 or 12 years old trying to train with, like, 30, 40-year-old fellas, do you know what I mean? So I probably didn't train properly then until I was probably, like, 14, 15, so it's a bit of like, these days kids are so lucky, they turn up at a gym, kids MMA, they got like 20, 30 kids to train with. Like, I was scrambling around trying to, like, wrestle one week and bloody kickbox the next week or whatever with no kids there, and then I'd turn up to, like, my dad's classes with a load of 40-year-old fellas who, like, didn't really want to train with an 11-year-old kid. So yeah, I probably started training properly though when I was, say, like 14, 15.
You gave boxing a go as well, right?
Professional boxing, yeah, I did. I had one fight. Yeah.
Bit of a nightmare trying to get fights right in that game.
Boxing's a bit. I don't like boxing. I love boxing, like the sport of boxing, the science of boxing, and everything. Like, I think it's amazing. It's actually my probably second favorite sport to MMA. But the boxing model is fucking god awful. I think it's absolutely terrible.
Tell me why.
What other sport do you look at, even like football, hockey, basketball, or anything? Look down a card. I mean, a card is a bit silly when you talk about football or whatever, but in boxing, you literally look at 12 fights on the card and know who's going to win the fights before you even watch them. Like, that's not sport to me. Like, sport is, like, say, football, Leicester play United, for example. Leicester have still got a go at winning. Do you know what I mean? A lot of the times in these fights, you got a guy 5-0 fighting someone 1-17. Like, first of all, it's straight up dangerous.
Yeah.
Second of all, it's not fucking interesting. Like, what the hell is that? You got guys literally getting to a world title level, and they've never fought anyone with, like, a winning record. What is that? Like, what? Like, it always seems to favour one guy over the others, even when they're fighting for world titles. Like this, in the past week, for example, Lomachenko against Devin Haney. Lomachenko's, like, getting a little bit past his prime now, and Haney's, like, in his prime. So still, even, like, mega fights like that, like they're calling it, there's still an older guy who's on the back end of his career and a guy who's coming up and priming. Why is there not two guys fighting? Why did Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua not happen when both of them were fucking on top of the world? Why? Why didn't Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao happen when they're both prime? Like, what is this shite about one really good guy fighting a guy? Even at the top level, it's like one world beater against one good guy. And then on the lower levels, Eddie Earn shows, Frank Warren shows, one really good guy against absolute shit. Like, what is this? Dangerous, man. Someone's going to die.
I guess it's one of the reasons why you think UFC is a better sport, is you prefer UFC.
Well, because it is a better sport.
Yeah, well, I agree.
Because you turn up at a UFC event and you go, who the fuck is going to win out of all of them fights? Yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
And even one.
Not just the UFC, Cage Warriors as well.
MMA in general.
As a sport.
You go to a local show, mate, you're 3-0 and you're a local guy and you're on a local show. You're fighting someone else 5-1. You're fighting someone else 4-2. You're fighting someone else 6-3. Like, they're even. You're fighting someone else 3-0. You're fighting someone else 2-0. You're not getting a guy 3-0 fighting someone 1-27. What, like, it's fucking dangerous, man. It's really dangerous, and I just don't agree with it. I love boxing. Absolutely love boxing. I'm the biggest boxing fan ever. Like, I watch boxing all of my life. When two skillful guys are showing what they're all about and putting it all on the line. Boxing is not one good guy fighting a fucking human punch bag. That's a load of shite.
What was it like then when you went into the Fury gym sparring with Tyson, Huey, under Paul? If you're a boxing fan, that must have been an incredible
that was
experience.
great. That was great. Yeah, that was great. The Fury family, awesome people. Peter Fury, who was coaching Tyson at the time, absolute genius. Been a big part in my career. He's still a big part in my career. Still speak to him. Still go down there, train sometimes. Great people. Fury family in general, just great people.
How old were you when you went off and did that?
I think I was like 22, early 20s, something like that.
You must have thought you were the fucking man.
No, not particularly.
Oh, really?
No.
I don't know. As like a boxer, I wonder. You get in that ring, you sort of get the rub. You mix it up with like the Gypsy King, right? And
yeah.
I'd struggle. Obviously never be in that situation, but I mean, I'd struggle as a young man to think, not be like I'm a big time guy here. I don't know.
No, I didn't think that at all. I felt like a small time guy. We had goddamn Tyson Fury, who was world champion at the time. I was a nobody at the time. No one knew who I was, and but they were very, very nice to me. Tyson's a great guy. Huey's a great guy. Peter's a great guy. The whole family are all really, really nice people. So nice people to be around. I learned so much from them.
How did it change? I'm expecting not just the boxing side of things, but also the mentality side of things. Probably
massively.
Learn a lot from those guys.
Massively. Yeah.
How?
Because before I so it was a weird way that it worked out for me. Like I was in MMA and I was struggling to get opponents, so I kind of like went sparring with them guys at first without the intention to box. And then I started going pretty regular, say like twice a week, 3 times a week. I can't remember exactly, but I was like having a fight set up, and then the opponent would pull out, and that kept going on for like a year. And then eventually they just came to me and said, "Why don't you just do boxing? You're not getting, you're here all the time anyway. Why don't you just switch over to boxing and have a go?" And yeah, that's what I decided to do for a little time being, until I realised that boxing is a bit of a strange game and I didn't really want to do it anymore.
Strange how?
Because they wanted to pay my opponents out of my own money, and I didn't want to do that. So
I don't blame you. Yeah.
Well, mate, I'm from MMA. I want my opponent to turn up and try and beat me. I don't want my opponents to me to have to pay my opponent. So basically, the way it worked, it was very odd. I wasn't aware of this before I got a license or whatever. This is not the same for everybody. Like a lot of the prospects and stuff, they'll get like backing off investors and sponsors and stuff, so they don't have that. But on the local kind of shows, they have like a ticket seller, which would be me in this case. And say I sold 500 quid's worth of tickets, for example. My opponent would want 400 quid for turning up. So he would have the 400 quid out of my ticket money. No, that's not the way it works. So the promoter would want a percentage, my opponent would want a percentage, and I get what's left over, which I remember fighting. I think my first pro fight I had to pay like 40 quid because my opponent wanted more and the promoter wanted more than had left over from my ticket money. So I think I actually ended up paying out my own money to fight at the time.
Man, that's rough.
So I didn't want to do that again. And The second time, they wanted me to fight this pretty good guy as well. They're like, oh, you can't be fighting you have to fight like a step up in journeyman. And I think he wanted like 5 or 6 grand. So I had to sell like 5 or 6 grand's worth of tickets and then 1 or 2 grand to the promoter. And then I had what was left. And I just wasn't selling that many tickets at the time. So I just didn't want to do that. So I was like, I'll just go back to MMA.
Yeah, fair enough. The logic's there, right? Your dad still is in your corner, right? You mentioned earlier, right? He's everything to you. How important is it to you to have someone where you have that relationship in your corner when you're fighting?
Well, my dad doesn't have any other... He has like no ulterior motive other than making me the heavyweight champion of the world. He's not in it for money. He's not in it for his own gain or anything like that. And he knows me so well. It's like we have trained together for so long. He doesn't have to give me a massive breakdown of what he wants me to do in that round. He can literally say 2 or 3 words and I know exactly what he means. Do you know what I mean? It's not like he doesn't have to sit me down in the corner and be like, break down exactly what I need to do. He'll just be like, for example, he'll just say foot on the outside and I'll know exactly what he means. He won't be like, right, when he steps forward, you need to step over, put this way, put this that way, position your body this way. He can literally say foot on the outside this time and I'll be like, right, okay, that's it. Because we trained together that long, I know exactly what he means when he explains stuff.
Is there you're a dad, right? And I imagine if you were to think about one of your kids taking up MMA, it's a dangerous sport. I mean, we all know it is, right? Does he have difficulty with that? You know, you are going in there to fight until the ref stops it, or happens.
I don't think so. He sees it as a sport.
Yeah.
It's a sport. It's a sport at the end of the day. So this is what I've grown up doing. He's used to it, I think. He's never said it to me. Maybe he does. Maybe he just keeps it to himself. But yeah, he's very calming. He's very calming anyway. Like if my dad wasn't, I wouldn't like to fight without my dad there. It just wouldn't feel right. I don't think I'd want to do it. So yeah, I wouldn't like anyone else in my corner apart from my dad. Really, as long as he's there, I'm good to go.
Would you want your kids to take up MMA?
So my oldest kid now, he's nearly 7. He started training, and he loves it. I'm just like, son, you can't be doing that. Like I never like encouraged it or or otherwise really, or like told him not to go. It's just been like same again. It's just been a bit of a natural progression. Like he'll come down the gym with me. I'm like my dad, obviously. And that's what I did with my dad. But now he goes with me and his granddad, my dad. And same again, he's just like hanging around the gym. Before I know it, some of my teammates' kids are hanging around the gym. Before I know it, they're fucking on the mat punching each other. And you're just like, and now they've started kids' classes and he's joining in. And I don't know, I think MMA is a great way to like channel your energy. It's such a positive thing, especially these days, mate. Smartphones, iPads.
Yep.
All that. Like, I don't want my kids. I mean, it's an inevitable these days, I think, that your kid has to have a smartphone and an iPad because you don't want them to be left out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're all the mates are on them.
Yeah.
You need them to be involved to a degree. But also, if you want to be good at martial arts or MMA or boxing or whatever, or any sport or anything really, but I think especially with MMA, if you're not invested, you're gonna get your ass kicked, and it's not very nice. So if you want to not get your ass kicked and be good at it, you need to spend a lot of time doing it, which obviously takes time away from sitting on a frigging iPad or a laptop or whatever. So I think it's very positive in that way. The thought of my children getting beat up and going through the whole anxiety process of preparing for a fight is not very nice. And I would hope that if they want to do it as a profession, that like I say, my oldest kid's nearly 7. Maybe in 10 years, the fights at the lower leagues and stuff, they'll pay a lot better, and it'll be worth his while. Because, like stuff like football, for example, even if you're like playing for an academy, you're getting paid good money. Like these guys are having tough fights in against tough guys and getting no money for it. So I would like them to get compensated financially if they can.
Is there almost a sense as well of the fact that you've done it so they don't have to go through it, maybe, you know.
Maybe, but it's just one of them, innit? It's like you do what you see, don't you? I think. But I'll support them whatever they do. Like I've got 3 boys, but if one of them says that they want to do frigging belly dancing or something, I'll take them. Do you know what I mean? I'm not like you have to be a cage fighter because this is what real men do. It's nothing like that. It's like, lads, do whatever you want and I'll support you. But when you're going down the gym twice, 3 times a week, I know because that's exactly what I did. When you're going down the gym twice, 3 times a week, it's a nice atmosphere there. People are nice and everyone's friendly and like bonding and stuff. It's nice. It's a nice place to be.
Social.
And yeah, and your friends are there, and everyone really respects each other in the gym as well. And it's just a natural, especially when you see your dad doing it. Like I see my dad doing it all my life, and I'm like, naturally, you just want to do it because your dad's doing it. So yeah, I think it's pretty inevitable that they will end up fighting one day. I think. I don't know. Like I say, there's no there's no encouragement or pushback. They can do whatever they want. So. But I think it's pretty inevitable, to be honest.
Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure. You're fighting Marcin Tybura at UFC London on the 22nd of July, live on BT Sport. Thank you so much for taking the time, mate. Go and knock his head off, lad. Get it done.
I'll try. Hopefully, won't actually knock it off.
Within the rules. Yeah.
But I'll knock him out and the ref will stop it. That's the plan.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, mate.